The 22nd of February, 1942, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It was carnival season. Outside the window, the southern hemisphere offered its passionate sunshine and ocean waves. On this day, 61-year-old Stefan Zweig completed the final household chore of his life. He tidied the room until it was spotless, sorted all his letters into categories, and even wrote farewell notes to his landlord and servants, thoughtfully leaving money to feed the dog. Then he dressed immaculately, tied his tie, and lay down on the bed with his wife, Lotte. They took a massive dose of barbiturates. When people found them, the scene didn't look like death. It looked more like an elegant afternoon nap. Why did Zweig have to die? At the time, he was one of the wealthiest writers in the world. He was safe. Nazi tanks were crushing Europe, but this was South America. The fires of war could not reach here. He had fame, money, freedom, and countless readers who adored him. Yet, he still chose death. In his suicide note, he wrote, "My spiritual home, Europe, has destroyed itself." In this world, to live with dignity requires too much courage. He didn't die of poverty, nor did he die of disease. He died of something far more lethal: the total collapse of his spiritual world. He watched helplessly as the beautiful world he believed in sank slowly before his eyes, like the Titanic. Today, when we reread Zweig, when we reread his The World of Yesterday, it isn't to mourn a departed writer. It is because, in the flow of time, every generation may reach a moment where they suddenly understand Zweig's sense of weightlessness. That panic of looking around in bewilderment when everything you know begins to shake. When you stand on the ruins of an old era watching a new world roar toward you. What Zweig missed most was that world of yesterday, Vienna at the end of the 19th century. That era had a core keyword: security, Sicherheit. What kind of world was it? Zweig described it. Everything had its norm, its definite measure and weight. The currency was on the gold standard, meaning that even decades later, the gold coin in your hand could still buy the same amount of bread. A civil servant's job was ironclad. Once hired, you could calculate your salary for the day you retired 40 years later. People believed technology would make tomorrow better. That reason could solve all disputes, and that barbarism and war had already been locked away in history museums. In that world, hard work was promised a reward, and savings were promised to be safe. That world was like a giant warm cradle. People dreamed sweet dreams in that cradle, thinking this age of peace was the end of history, that it would last forever, like the rising and setting of the sun. However, this was not just a delusion of the Viennese. It is a blind spot shared by all prosperous eras. People living in a golden age often suffer from a kind of historical myopia. Accustomed to the solid ground beneath their feet, they mistake it for an eternal foundation. Little do they know that in the long river of history, peace is often just a brief interlude, and chaos is the norm. We think we are standing on rock, but in reality, we are often standing on a thin layer of ice. In his memoir, Zweig spent a great deal of ink writing about one thing: passports. Before 1914, people didn't need passports. You could buy a train ticket and go from Vienna to Paris, from Berlin to London at will. Borders were just dotted lines on a map, not the cold barbed wire of reality. No police would ask who you were. No one checked your faith or origin. That was an era of exploding human confidence. The world was open, and trust was the default option. But as the gunshots rang out, the world suddenly put up fences. Zweig was horrified to find that human dignity was suddenly compressed into a piece of paper with a stamp on it. Without this paper, you were not a human, you were just a pile of meaningless protein. In his exile, he stood in line countless times at consulate doors. Even though he was a world-famous writer, he had to humble himself like a beggar before an arrogant little clerk, just to beg for a transit visa. He wrote in his book, "I once thought I was the center of the universe. Now I realize I am just a fallen leaf blown about by the wind." This objectification of the human is the deepest fear. When the giant machine starts to roar, the individual cannot make a sound. We used to think we were the masters of our lives. Later we discovered we are merely survivors of the times, or its victims. This is not just Zweig's tragedy. This is the most absurd paradox of modern civilization. We created civilization, And in the end, civilization became the cage that imprisoned us. Why did he have to die? He had a villa, servants, and flowers in Brazil. Because he was suffering from a terminal illness, homesickness, Heimweh. But he didn't miss the geographical Austria, which was already draped in Nazi flags. He missed the world of yesterday. In that world, people respected knowledge more than power. In that world, friends talked about Goethe and Beethoven, not ethnic cleansing. In that world, decency was more important than life. When he saw that world torn apart, he found himself a living fossil. He still spoke elegant German, but that language was now used to shout orders for slaughter. He still insisted on humanitarianism, but people around him told him that is a sign of weakness. He didn't die because he feared war. He died because he was out of place, like a knight from ancient times, wearing exquisite armor and adhering to the old etiquette of dueling, only to find the enemy driving a tank over him without any rules. It wasn't that he couldn't fight. It was that he disdained to tangle with such a world. He refused to turn himself into a beast to tear and bite in this new world full of crudeness and hatred. So, he chose to reserve the final power, the power to refuse. On that afternoon in 1942, the Zweigs took poison and lay down in each other's arms. According to the housekeeper who found the bodies, Zweig's expression was very calm, even carrying a hint of a relieved smile. On the table lay that famous suicide note. Many people read despair in this letter, but what I read is a kind of tragic tenderness. He wrote, "My spiritual home Europe has destroyed itself. In this world, to live with dignity requires too much courage." He admitted he no longer had that courage. He was too tired. Like a night watchman, he guarded a flickering candle all night long. And finally, in the darkest moment before dawn, he burned the last drop of oil. He fell, but he didn't lose. Because before he died, he wrote down that world of yesterday completely and sealed it in a book. He turned that civilization, which once existed, was beautiful, rational, and decent, into a specimen, and left it for the future. 3 years after Zweig's death, Hitler committed suicide, and Nazi Germany surrendered. He didn't live to see that day. This looks like a huge regret, but perhaps for him, it no longer mattered. Because for an idealist, when the temple in one's heart collapses, physical survival is just a lingering death by 1,000 cuts. Today, when we close this book, The World of Yesterday, and look out at the busy modern city, we might feel an inexplicable chill. History never repeats itself, but it always rhymes. That old world, which once made Zweig feel incredibly safe, collapsed in an instant. And is the safety we are in right now truly indestructible? Perhaps we are all just passers-by of the times. When the storm comes, some choose to resist like an oak tree. Some choose to bend like a reed, and Zweig chose to shatter like glass. There is no hierarchy among these three choices. Shattering is also a way of speaking. Those fragments on the ground still reflect the light of that golden age today, stinging the eyes of everyone who comes after.